The project monitoring plan. The monitoring plan helps us measure progress toward achieving our project objectives. It's the collection of routine data. It tracks changes in project performance over time so that stakeholders can make informed decisions and help us monitor the efficient use of the project resources. The monitoring areas include process monitoring, how we use our inputs and activities in the project. Then we look at objectives monitoring, meaning what is happening as a result of activities, the outputs and outcomes. And then the context. We look at the risk and the assumptions that were identified at the beginning of the project and whether or not these are changing. When we look at our monitoring plan, we need to take into account the logic of how the project was designed. And in our lake from what we look at the information is that this sequence of activities, outputs, outcome, and impact are related based on key assumptions. For example, a certain activity of training people, if an assumption is still valid, then we'll be able to produce an output. The same way, once we have the output and the assumption is still valid, then we will be able to have an outcome. And the same way, if the assumption at that level still holds true, then the project can attribute some of that impact. An example could be that one activity will be to train 100 people. If all the people are able to participate, then we'll have an output of 100 people trained, so they have a new knowledge. Now, the next level of the output will be if all the people who have been trained are able to apply that knowledge into their work, then we will have an outcome. But then again, if they are able to apply it, and if they are able to apply it, then the assumption is that it will increase the efficiencies, it will increase the productivity, it will increase the income, so we will have an impact. The situation happens is that when one of these assumptions changes at any one of these levels, if the assumption changes, then we're not going to be able to achieve the next layer. If not everybody achieves, or people don't participate in the training, or they don't complete the training, then we don't have an output. So that's an area and how we're going to be monitoring those changes, understanding the logic of the design. The monitoring evaluation plans also are looking at those 4 areas. We're going to be looking at activities, all the actions to deliver results, and that's where we spend most of the time of our work in the project. Then we look at results. So what happened? We did all these activities, and what are the tangible deliverables? So we look at that area on a less regular process. Then we look at the outcomes. What happens from the outputs? What are the conditions? And then we look at the output level, and later, usually, and during the evaluations, that will be the area that will be in charge of looking at the final goal or impact. When we look at the monitoring, we need to have an understanding and try also to develop our monitoring schedule plan. That's where we identify all the elements of our log frame in terms of our outputs. Here's an example. We can list our outputs. We can have the indicators, what we're trying to measure, the target, the progress that we're making to date, and the person responsible for informing that. The timeline gives us an idea of when the output needs to occur based on the information that we have in our schedule, and it's a way to track the progress of the different outputs as they are happening through the life of the project. As the next level, we also need to monitor the indicators. Indicators in terms of the process and activities are going to be the ones that are going to helping us to manage information to track whether or not the project is making an impact. The process indicators are mostly the levels of activities. The output indicators are the products or deliverables or the tangibles that we have. Outcome will have the effect or changes, and the goal are related with impact. When we look at that, we can create a monitoring matrix again, where we have all the different levels in that are coming from our log frame. We can use the information of the indicators, the sources for that information indicators, who is providing that. In using the example before, training people, the source for information, how many people completed the training at the level of activity. We can say that it was the reports from the teacher or the institution where they went and took the courses. How we collect information, and that's another element that is important, because that is going to have an impact in terms of the time and the cost of it. Also the frequency, how often we want that information, and the person responsible for managing that element of monitoring metrics. There are also two important distinctions that we need to make, and that's effective and efficient. When we're monitoring, we need to look at how effective the project is, and that means doing the right things, and that's where we look at the information that we have from the log frame. And effective is that we're able to achieve the target, that we're not aiming at something different, that we're actually using all the activities that are happening are producing the right outputs and the right outcomes. Efficient means doing the things right, and we look at this element. We look at how we're using our resources based on the different constraints that we have. That means we're hitting the target with only one try. We don't need to spend 2 or 3 times to achieve that, reach that target. So when we look at our monitoring plan, we also need to make sure that we're looking at things that are how effective we are and how efficient we are.